How's it going, guys? Casey here with the Coyote Works channel. Well, I'm headed out this little trail today looking for a spot where I can break out what I think is the ultimate survival bug out inch pack, my pack that I carry around in the back of my vehicle with me, and give you guys a detailed look at the contents. So this pack is my version of a long-term survival bug out pack, inch pack, get home pack. Years and years ago, I went away from the idea of having a bunch of different packs for a bunch of different purposes and combined everything into one pack. And I think you guys are going to appreciate the philosophy behind why I think that's a really effective strategy. My hope is that you guys can benefit from all the experience I have with testing it out in a variety of different environments and situations. And this can be a big help for you guys in helping you build out your own packs or your own bug out kits to fit your particular circumstances. Because the first thing to understand is all of our survival kits and bug out bags, things like that, always need to be built for our particular set of circumstances, our environment that we live in, and the scenarios that we think we're going to need to use them in. All right, I think we got a decent little spot here, so let's get into it. So before we jump into the pack, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what the purpose of this pack is. So for me, there's a couple of different roles that this pack fills. One, and probably the most important and the most likely role that it has to fill, is this is my contingency plan for when I'm way out in the remote backcountry, overlanding, car camping, and exploring, for if my vehicle breaks down. So, as you guys know, I spend a lot of time in really remote areas, and most of the time I'm solo. That being the case, if my rig breaks down, I have to be able to have the capability to self-rescue. So what this pack is this stands ready with all the gear in it that I would need to survive for several days if that's what it took for me to be able to walk out or get myself to a place that there were other people that could rescue me. So one of the important aspects of that is having a set of gear all packed in one pack that I can grab all at one time and know that I have all of the basic survival gear I need to survive a couple of days. And if any of you guys saw the video where I was out on an overlanding trip and another Jeep that I owned actually caught on fire, you'll know why it's so important to have a pack that's all ready and has all your gear all contained within it. When that fire broke out, really all I had time for was to grab a couple of pieces of gear. So the most practical purpose of a pack like this is a contingency plan for just the normal recreating, overlanding, and car camping out back in remote country. All right, so that's all practical and good, but let's talk about some other roles that this pack could fill right here. One is as a get-home bag. So the traditional idea of a get-home bag is if you're any place away from your home and something happens and you needed enough gear to get yourself back home or get yourself to a place where you had other gear, that's the role that a get-home pack fills. So that would be another thing that this would work for. So also this pack can fill the role of an inch pack. And any of you guys that are bug out junkies like me know that an inch pack stands for I'm not coming home. And basically the idea behind an inch pack is that it's geared more towards long-term survival. It's based on the idea that if there was some kind of a major societal collapse, it would be a setup of gear that you could grab and sustain yourself out of for a long period of time. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit about how it fits into that role as well. Alright, so the first thing is the pack that I'm using is the Eberlestock V90 Battleship pack, and it's about a 6,100 cubic inch pack. So in its full system, when it's designed to perform as a true inch pack, or long-term survival pack, or as I like to call it, my EDLS pack, or extended desert living system, it's designed to work in harmony with my bat belt, my pistol belt, which carries my pistol, a Coyote Works survival knife, a major bleeding blowout kit, a couple extra pistol magazines, a dump pouch, pair of gloves, just a few basic pieces of kit like that. And then also my Garmin InReach GPS unit and my Hill People Gear chest pack. So all of these pieces of gear are designed to function together for it to have its ultimate kind of long-term survival capacity. Having said that, to function in a role of a get-home pack or a survival pack to get me out of a bad situation where, say, my vehicle breaks down when I'm out in the backcountry. The pack is a standalone unit in and of itself too. So I literally can just grab the pack and run with it and know that I have everything inside it that I need. So right out of the gate, I wanted to point out a couple of things about this. One is that this pack, as it sits right now, weighs somewhere in the ballpark of 60 pounds, maybe even 65 pounds, which is actually a really heavy pack, at least for a guy like me, my age and in my condition. And I know a lot of people get really wrapped around the axles about how much their Bugout or inch pack weighs. My philosophy on that is load this thing up as heavy as I can with every possible piece of gear that I think I might need within reason, knowing that whatever the situation that happens that I need it in, I can jettison whatever gear doesn't apply to that scenario. For example, if it's in the middle of the summer and all I need to do is I just need enough gear to get from my broken down Jeep 2 days walk out to a highway, there's a lot of this gear on here I don't need. So I would jettison everything I don't need and probably really just focus on a little bit of food, some basic shelter, and some basic supplies. By the same token, if I was in a total societal collapse or zombie apocalypse scenario, I probably would carry everything I could in this pack, knowing that I just wasn't going to be able to cover that many miles a day with this much weight. So first of all, on the outside of the pack, I want to point out a couple of things. A pretty robust first aid kit here. I'm not going to go into the contents, but this has got all of the first aid stuff that I would need to treat some pretty major bleeding, as well as some kind of minor cuts and scrapes. Also, there's obviously a blowout kit on the back of my pistol belt as well. Also on the outside of the pack, I have a multi-tool right here, critical piece of gear. That gives me another knife, something to strike sparks off of a fire steel, some basic tools, etc. And then also on the outside of the pack, I've got a Grans Force Bruck small forest axe and this is a Silky Big Boy XL 2000 saw. So an axe and a saw, critical pieces of gear for making shelter and doing it efficiently. Also on the outside of the pack, right here, I've got a poly ripstop Helly Hansen shell. So this is like a storm shell, a waterproof storm shell. Obviously I have it on the outside of the pack so that it's easy to get to if I encounter some foul weather. So having said that, let's go into the top compartment. So one feature of this pack is this top pouch is completely removable and can be used as a waist pouch as well. But we're just going to go into it in the top pouch. These are going to be things that I want relatively quick access to on the trail. So what I've got up here is I've got some athletic tape. This stuff comes in handy treating scrapes and bruises. It's also good for wrapping up and keeping gear quiet that's rattling around. I've got some hand sanitizer, which also makes a good fire starter. I've got what are these, about 440 calorie Millennium bars right there. So I've got handy access to some calories on the trail. I've got a pack towel right here. I've got a whetstone, sharpening stone. This is for refining the edge on my axe or on the knives that I carry. I've got a small Polytac flashlight with fresh batteries in it. I've got a higher lumen Streamlight Polytac. I want to say this is an 800 lumen light. I've got extra batteries for my lights, chapstick, and an ever-present Bic lighter. So that's what's in the back side of the top pocket up here. Now on the inside of the top pouch, there's another pocket in here. So here's where I have some more kind of critical things. This is a packet full of instant coffees. I have about 30 instant coffees in here. So if I did 2 a day, that would be about 15 days worth of coffee. Some Kind bars, more calories. Some pink salmon right here. 2 packets of that. Got a couple of packets of tissues here, which also make fire starter. And a couple more bars. So I actually have a total of 6 of these nut and fruit bars there, and 2 packets of salmon. So, I mean, that's actually a good solid day's worth of sustenance between that and that Millennial bar. So that's everything that's in the top pouch. Alright, so there's just no easy way of doing this other than just bust into it. So one of the things I really like about this pack is it's already like 6,000 cubic inches but then it has like this gusseted sleeve here, and you can extend the straps on the lid and give it even more capacity. So going right into it, I have this basically packed theoretically in order of how I would most likely need to access the gear. So right on top, I've got my robust fire making kit. This has tinder, fire steel, all of that stuff inside it for making fire in really extreme conditions and over a long period of time. If I've got time, I'll show you guys the detail on that. Then, something really important, I have a bag full of cordage. This is mostly paracord, and then also this, I think it's 250 pound test, it's smaller. Have a few bungee cords in here, and then one thing that I find really handy is a few stakes. Stakes come in really handy when you're trying to make a quick shelter. So this is kind of my cordage bag right here. Then I have a stainless steel water bottle and stainless steel cup. Really important to have stainless steel here because these actually both end up being cooking vessels for me also. Right underneath that, I do have one plastic Nalgene can. Then I've got a basically just a large cotton bandana that can be also used to clean up dishes, used as a towel, used as a head covering, whatever you want or need. Then I've got an anodized aluminum bush pot. This is the Moore's bush pot, and it's actually stuffed with food, wet wipes, disinfecting wipes, these little camp soap sheets, really compact. They're basically these tiny little sheets that when they dissolve in water, they suds up. In here I've also got my silverware, a can opener, another Bic lighter, 2 Bic lighters because you can't have too many of those. So I think these are, let me see how many, yeah, these are 50 sheets of soap each, and I have 2 of those. So that's enough soap to get me through a couple of weeks for sure. Then I also have a little bottle of biodegradable soap in here as well, and a towel. Obviously this is another cooking pot also, so between this anodized aluminum bush pot, my stainless steel cup, and my stainless steel water bottle, I've actually got 3 vessels that I can cook or boil water to make it potable in. Continuing down into the pack, this is a fairly thick fleece insulating layer. That's really important to have. I've got the storm shell that you guys saw on the outside, and then this is an insulating layer in there. Down below that, I've got my tarp. This is a snug pack. I think it's a 12 by 14 tarp, which is a really nice size. So this is basically my shelter. I don't have a tent or anything like that. I basically have this kind of ripstop poly tarp here, and then the cordage and the stakes, and this is what I would make my shelter out of, or this in a combination with natural materials. Going on beneath that, I have my major food bag. So in this food bag right here, and this probably could be a whole video in and of itself, but I've got everything from Mountain House meals to rice to all kinds of different things in here, packages of instant potatoes, and maybe I'll go into detail on this in a separate video just because that could take a while. But basically, there's enough sustenance in this bag and in the other pouches of my pack to get me through a couple of weeks. And if I supplemented a little bit with, say, a rabbit or a robin or something like that here and there, I would do okay. Going on down below that, this is actually kind of what I would consider my trapping and sustenance. So this is kind of my little module of items that will help me procure small game or protein in the wild. So this is a fishing kit right here. So this has sinkers in it, fish hooks, and a little bit of fishing line. Then I also have some more fishing line here. And fishing line, besides catching fish, also makes good snare line as well, and can be really helpful in crafting traps. And then I also have, this is the couple ounces of salt right here. So this is enough salt that I could actually rub it on several pounds worth of meat to preserve it. Then here's this yo-yo automatic fishing reel, but actually what I use them for out in my country is for snares. They make great automatic snares. And then here's some guitar strings that I also have for snare wire. So I have 3 separate guitar strings, which I also could cut and make as many. So this gives me the ability to be able to set up to 6 snares out of that, plus other cordage that I have in my system. Oh, I also have in this pouch my weapons cleaning kit. So this is an Otis cleaning kit that does everything from 9mm pistols to 5.56, and I even have a shotgun brush in there. So this is a great example of one of those things that this is more a long-term survival component of this kit. This would be great in that zombie apocalypse, or I'm walking off the grid and I'm not coming home scenario, but not necessary in the scenario where my Jeep breaks down and I just have a couple of days walk back to civilization. So this would be a great example of something I would just jettison if it wasn't a zombie apocalypse scenario. Going on a little deeper in here, inside this, so in here is personal hygiene, a lot of packets of tissue, toilet paper. This has also got my repair kit in it. So inside this repair kit, I've got repair tape. I've got extra nylon straps. Inside here are my needles and several different sizes of safety pins and buttons, metal buttons, things like that. Now, buttons can come in really handy to repair things, and I've got some heavy-duty steel buttons in there. Then I've got some of these attachment points for straps to replace buckles. And then here I've got a roll of tape, and then inside this tube is a couple of more needles. Here's a few different buckles, tri-glides, just a few various things to help repair stuff. And these adhesive repair patches here are really good for clothing primarily, or larger holes in like my bivy sack or my sleeping bag or something like that. Something for you to think about for a long-term survival or inch pack is a repair kit. Extra batteries here, another package of extra batteries. And then something, again, that maybe not everybody would think about is something else that I have in here is I have some empty plastic Ziploc bags, some freezer bags. So one thing that happens is if I'm in a long-term survival situation is I'm going to want to be able to harvest small game. And these plastic bags in here make a good way to be able to transport that small game. So there's a couple of pretty critical items: the plastic bags, the game processing kit, the repair kit. Now let's go back in here and see what else we got. So this is my water filtration system here. So this is the Sawyer filter that can either go in line with the tubing, or it can screw directly on top of a plastic water bottle. And then I've got the syringe here too for cleaning the filters, for back flushing it. All right. What else do we have in here? Oh, here's one thing that I have. You guys have probably never seen this. This is a, just make sure that's empty. This is a Ruger single 6 22 pistol. Extremely accurate 22 pistol. I think that's a 6.5 or a 7-inch barrel. But man, I can hit sage rats or small game with this at 20 yards-ish or so pretty competently, pretty regularly. So again, this is an example of another item that I would want in that long-term survival scenario, but would ditch it if it was just a matter of me having enough gear in this pack to get myself from my broken down rig back to civilization. All right, the next thing that we're going to come to here is going to be my clothing. This is basically an entire change of clothes, a pair of durable ripstop pants, thermal underlayer, extra socks, extra underwear, actually 2 extra pair of socks in here. So even if a disaster scenario happened and I wasn't wearing very appropriate clothes for the outdoors, I at least have 1 change of clothes. And then providing that I was wearing appropriate clothing, this gives me an extra set to change into. Oh, here's my 22 shells here. So I also have my 22 shells in these metal tins. And these metal tins would also work for me to use to make char cloth with, or have all kinds of handy purposes when I use up the shells. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is inside my food bag, you can kind of hear it rattling in there, but when it's buried down in my pack and I'm moving, you don't hear it rattling. But that is a 150 count bottle of multivitamins in there. So being out in a long-term survival situation, potentially, once I run low on my food supply here, I could be in a situation where I have access to a lot of protein, a lot of small game, but not a lot of organic out here in the high desert, not a lot of access to vitamin and mineral rich foods and things like that. So multivitamins could come in really handy there, keeping you healthy in a long-term situation. Another component of my first aid, this is a little boo-boo kit. So this is ibuprofen, Advil, aspirin, Band-Aids, things like that to supplement this major first aid kit on the outside of my pack. All right, now one of the things I like about this pack is it's that design that has this bottom opening here. And what I have down here is I've got some more of basically my sleeping system down here, but I just stuffed inside here also a set of wool glove liners. So let's pull this out and I'll show you guys what I have here. This is a Thermarest insulating pad. So this is a self-inflating pad, but one of the reasons why I chose this one for my inch pack is, number one, I've used these for years. This is a Scout pad. It's the one that was designed for the military, so it's very tough, durable, and it holds up in field conditions. But one of the reasons why I chose this is because when you inflate it, it's very comfortable and very insulating. But even if it does develop a hole that eventually I couldn't repair, it still has some insulating and padding qualities, even when it won't hold air. So it's a good piece of kit in that respect. And that's part of the reason too that goes back to that repair kit. So I would be able to repair small holes in that. Outside of that, I've got this is a 20-degree sleeping bag. Here's the deal. Oh, actually it says right here, this is the Recon 3, and it's got a survival rating of 23 degrees Fahrenheit. So, having said that, I could potentially be in an environment where it was quite a bit colder than that. However, this in conjunction with my thermal base layers, my fleece, my clothing and everything, probably would add at least another 15 to 20 degrees to it. And then for that small number of nights that's colder than that, I would just have to rely on my shelter and fire configuration to keep me a little bit warmer. But I do also have one other layer that will add a little bit of warmth to that, and that is I have the USGI bivy sack in here. So this USGI bivy would go around the outside of the sleeping bag and probably add another, at least 5 to 10 degrees to it. So between all of my insulating layers I probably have the ability to survive and even be moderately comfortable down to, 0-ish degrees or so. Especially, and even colder than that, with the right configuration of a shelter and fire placement. Alright guys, well I feel like I probably went through that way too fast, but hopefully that gave you an idea on kind of what all goes into my version of the ultimate bug out, survival, get home, long-term desert living system pack. So developing this pack system, what I call my EDLS or my extended desert living system, goes back a long ways. I've added and changed and adapted as I've used it more and as I've gained more experience over the years. So a couple of themes that hopefully you guys noticed, but I think are worth putting out there, are that with a lot of this gear, a lot of it is multi-purpose. I tried to specifically choose items that can serve more than one purpose in a long-term survival or a living type of a situation when you're out in an austere environment. The other theme that I've stayed pretty consistent with is really minimizing my dependence on consumable items. So the idea of the consumables in here is basically to get me through a period of time until I would be able to recreate or create or gather replacements for those things in the field. So the idea is basically to minimize the dependence on consumables, to maximize the number of items that have multiple purposes, and really to think about the survival basics. Going back to thinking about you need shelter, you need to protect yourself from the heat and the cold, you need to be able to hydrate, you need to be able to eat, you need to be able to defend yourself. Just going back to the basics like that. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this look inside the belly of the beast, so to speak, the Coyote Works Ultimate Survival Bug Out Inch Pack, and hopefully it gave you guys some ideas on building out some of your kit. I highly recommend anybody that spends time in the backcountry to have some kind of a pack like this that just stays in their vehicle all the time. In my mind, it's absolutely critical to have all in one spot, all within one container, all within one pack, everything you need to survive at least for a couple of days. So in the event of an emergency, you know where you can go in your vehicle and grab one thing, and you know you'll have everything you need to get through a couple of days out in the backcountry. So having said that, let your comments and questions commence in the section down below. And as always, I appreciate you guys' support. And more than anything, I'll look forward to seeing you on the next adventure. Coyote Works, out.